Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. For the past 7 months, my wife had been deeply involved in an important project. Although it wasn't her initiative, she became the driving force behind it, taking on the responsibility for its success. This project was crucial for her company, and failure was not an option. The immense pressure took a toll on her, but the stakes were high, not only for her, but for the entire company. The company was on the brink of collapse if the project didn't succeed. Nora was undoubtedly the most educated person in our family. Unlike her, I had worked as a car mechanic since I finished school. After more than 30 years in the field, I remained a mechanic, content with my role. I never had any complaints. The job paid well, allowing us to cover Nora's education and comfortably raise our 2 children. We weren't wealthy, but we lived well enough, and our financial situation was stable. Our children had grown up and moved out, and we managed fine with our combined income. Nora and I married young, and she became pregnant just 2 months after our wedding when we were both 19 years old. In those early years, we lived with my parents. Their house was large, as most of my siblings had already moved out, so it was a good arrangement. It also provided free childcare while Nora continued her studies. Due to 2 pregnancies, her 4-year degree took 6 years. It wasn't easy, but she was determined, and eventually, she earned her degree. I always had a steady job, and when extra money was needed, I could work overtime. After Nora completed her MBA, we moved into our own home. She received offers from several prestigious companies, but most required relocating. While I was open to the idea, Nora preferred to stay close to home, which led her to the company where she continued her career. The salary was decent, but what attracted Nora most was the responsibility and the potential for career growth. She threw herself into her work, tirelessly. A major presentation was scheduled for Thursday at a hotel, and I took a few days off to support her, though my help mainly consisted of preparing meals when she came home. I didn't know much about the corporate world and had no desire to. Business had never interested me. Executives were flying in from across the U.S. for the event. The company covered their travel and accommodation in a luxury hotel, which must have cost a fortune. From what Nora shared, it seemed the company was stretching beyond its financial limits. Her presentation was vital not only for her career, but for the company's future and the livelihoods of its 300 employees. Everything was going smoothly until Tuesday evening, when Nora came home in a new, formal gray suit and white blouse. She spread out her materials and belongings in the guest room. At home, Nora's habits were fairly average, but when it came to work, she was incredibly meticulous. I noticed she had also packed some lingerie, though I didn't ask why. In addition to business attire, she had packed several elegant cocktail dresses for events related to the presentation. I offered to accompany her to these events, but she gently declined, saying my presence wasn't necessary. Her car was already loaded with everything she needed, documents, equipment, everything for the presentation. Nora preferred to drive herself to ensure everything remained in perfect order. Wednesday was reserved for preparation, and the evening was dedicated to networking with company guests. She was so skilled at her job that sometimes I felt like I would only be in the way. By the end of the day, she had finally finished all her preparations. Nora double-checked everything, leaving only a relaxing shower and a good night's sleep. Wanting to help, I made the mistake of looking through her things while she was in the shower. As I was tidying up, I noticed a small white envelope slip out of the side pocket of her makeup bag. It was from a pharmacy I didn't recognize. Inside were 10 pills, something unfamiliar to me. The instructions were strange, advising to take 1 pill with the option of a second dose in 12 hours if necessary. I assumed they were for anxiety, but the directions didn't make sense to me. The doctor prescribed her the medication that Monday. After she finished her shower, I quietly put the envelope back in its place. I wanted to learn more about this drug before bringing it up with her. If I mentioned it right away, she would know I had been snooping through her things, and I was afraid of that confrontation. Later that night, when Nora was getting ready for bed, I sat down at the computer and started researching the medication. 10 minutes later, I returned to bed with her, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind was racing, especially because I couldn't understand why she needed a morning after pill when I had a vasectomy 20 years ago. The next morning, despite feeling completely exhausted, I forced myself to get up early and went for a long walk, hoping to clear my thoughts. When I got home, I was filled with nervous energy, and I didn't know what to say or do when I saw her again. Our son, Josh, had joined the Navy right after high school and was now serving. Our daughter, Gloria, had just married her longtime boyfriend and moved away. With them gone, it was just Nora and me. Though I missed the kids, I was looking forward to spending our later years together, just the two of us. Nora had always been the only woman I loved, but now it felt like everything was falling apart. If she had someone else in her life, she had hidden it perfectly. I had never checked her phone or her emails. I had always trusted her completely. There was no way for me to know what she did at work or after work. My trust in her had never wavered. "Matthew, where have you been? Do you want some eggs or something?" she asked. "No, just coffee," I replied. I didn't feel like talking. "Are you okay?" she asked again. "It's only for a few days. You can come with me if you want, but you'll be terribly bored." "No, I don't want to go," I said. "But I don't like the thought of you leaving. I feel uneasy when you're not around." "That's sweet of you," she said with a smile. "But don't worry, I'll hardly leave the hotel. Today is all about setting up the conference room, and then I'll be busy talking with clients. Tomorrow I won't have a moment to think. I'll be back on Friday, and we'll have a great weekend together, if you know what I mean." Her attempt to reassure me was nice, but my unease didn't fade. "Can you blame me for worrying?" I said. "I'm just a mechanic, and you're an incredible, successful woman. Sometimes it feels like your career means more to you than we do as a family." "Stop it," she said sharply. "Matthew, I've never looked down on your work or thought less of you because of it. You've raised two wonderful kids, supported me through school, and you've always been a great husband and father. Never forget that." I took a sip of coffee while she cleared the dishes. "Should I call you while you're away?" I asked. "No," she replied. "I'll be busy, and I plan to turn my phone off in the evenings to get some rest. But I'll call when I can." I helped her load the car for her trip, noticing how carefully she handled her work materials, as always. I stood on the porch and watched her drive away, still unable to bring myself to ask about the prescription. The rest of the morning dragged on as I sat on the porch, more anxious than I had ever been in my life. I felt small, as if I didn't belong in my own world. I was just an ordinary guy with a simple job, married to a woman who now seemed so distant. How had I not seen this coming? I couldn't shake the feeling of insecurity. I felt foolish. The best clothes I owned were an old blue blazer and pants, and my ties hadn't been in style for over a decade. Just as I finished dressing, the landline phone rang. "Hello, dear. I just wanted to quickly let you know that I arrived safely. I hope your trip went smoothly and without any trouble." "Mine went well. I'll call you later this evening. Right now I have to go. I'm staying in room 335. Nora, I might stop by my parents' or my brother's tonight. If you need to reach me, call my cell." At that moment, my phone rang. "I love you, but I really have to go." I wasn't in a hurry to get to the hotel where my wife was staying. I drove leisurely. Instead of heading straight to the hotel, I first stopped to eat a steak. It felt like the evening would drag on, and I wasn't sure what to do. After parking in the hotel garage, I lingered a bit, hesitating to go inside. When my phone rang again, it decided things for me. "Matthew, just wanted to let you know. Everything is settled. I'm heading to meet some people for dinner. Did you forget anything?" "No," I replied. "Everything's fine. Everything's ready for tomorrow. It's all in the room. Do you need anything?" "No, Matthew. Just relax. I'm turning off my phone now. I'll call you tomorrow morning." "All right. Have fun." She gave a quiet chuckle. "It's not about fun, Matthew. It's work." When I entered the hotel, I didn't stand out much. The lobby, restaurant, and conference halls were full of people, and I easily blended in. I picked up a small brochure with a map of the premises and began wandering, stopping occasionally to observe the crowd. I wasn't sure how I'd react if Nora noticed me. I decided I'd think about it if it happened. I came across a board listing all the groups using the hotel rooms, but interestingly, her company wasn't listed for Wednesday night. Nora had mentioned she wouldn't be leaving the hotel, but now I wasn't so sure. The hotel had 3 dining rooms: family, casual, and fine dining. Knowing she didn't enjoy dining among children, I checked the casual dining room first. After about 7 minutes, it became clear she wasn't there. The next stop, the fine dining room, seemed more promising. In a quiet, cozy booth in the corner, perfect for a private meeting, I saw her. Nora was in an elegant black cocktail dress, pearls glimmering, looking flawless. Her companion was clearly captivated by her. I recognized some of Nora's colleagues, but this man was unfamiliar to me. His face seemed vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place where I'd seen him. The room was fairly empty, so I crossed to my table without attracting much attention. There were candles in glass holders on the tables. I blew out the candle at my table, telling the waiter it was irritating my eyes. I ordered my usual chicken dish and slowly sipped the coffee the waiter had already refilled 3 times. "Excuse me," I said to the waiter. "The man at that table looks very familiar. Do you know who he is?" "That's Malcolm Eugene Foote," the waiter replied. "He's on the city council. Rumor has it he's planning to run for Congress." "Is that his wife? She's stunning." "No," the waiter shook his head. "I've never seen her before. He usually reserves this table for certain women, if you know what I mean." I smiled knowingly and asked for the bill. I'd never seen Nora so captivated by someone. She was hanging on his every word, as if he were some kind of deity. Their behavior wasn't overtly inappropriate, but the connection between them seemed far from professional or strictly friendly. When I left them, they were already on their 2nd bottle of wine. In that moment, everything clicked into place. Now I understood why she had packed her best lingerie. I found a secluded spot in the hotel lobby, positioning myself so I could observe them without being seen. About 10 minutes later, I saw them leave the restaurant together. As they moved through the lobby toward the elevator, she was holding his hand. I kept a close eye on the elevator's indicator, tracking the floors. When they got off on the 3rd floor, I felt a brief sense of relief. It seemed like she hadn't taken him to her room. But when the elevator didn't stop on the 5th floor, I realized things were worse than I had thought. This could only mean one thing. She had gone to his room. Just in case I was wrong, I stayed in place for another hour, carefully watching the elevator. People came and went, but she never reappeared. Finally, I retrieved my empty suitcase from the car and headed to the front desk. Even though I showed them proof of our marriage, the staff hesitated to give me the key. Only when they tried calling the room and got no answer did they give in. Once I had the key, I made my way to room 315. At first, I didn't even turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark for over an hour, waiting to see if she would return. When I was certain she wasn't coming back, I started packing all her clothes and personal belongings, leaving nothing behind. I even checked her birth control pills. There were 10 left in the pack. On the dresser, her materials for the next day's presentation were neatly arranged, ready for an important meeting. I packed everything into the suitcase. 24 personalized folders, 20 standard ones, her digital projector, and her laptop. I also took her purse and phone, which she had left in the room. All she had with her was a small clutch and maybe some lipstick. I searched every corner of the room to make sure I didn't miss anything. When I was done, I left her car keys and my wedding ring on the dresser. Besides those 2 items, the room was empty. I took the elevator straight down to the parking garage. Handling 2 suitcases wasn't hard, and within 20 minutes, I was already on the highway, heading north. It was past 3 in the morning, though I hadn't noticed how late it had gotten. A couple of hours later, my phone rang. The hotel's number appeared on the screen. "Matthew?" "Yes?" "Where are you?" "I'll be home soon," I replied calmly. Silence filled the line. In sales, they say the first one to speak loses. It felt like an eternity before she finally spoke again. "Matthew, I'm sorry." That was all she said before hanging up. She didn't ask any questions. I turned off my phone. By that time, she must have already returned to her room. She had an important presentation that could be pivotal for her career and lead to a promotion. I stored the suitcases in the attic above the garage. Nora never went up there, so she would never find them. But by that time, none of it mattered anymore. I had packed my own things. Like many men, I took pride in my tool collection. I stopped by the store, loaded my tools into the car, and cashed my last check. By the time I finished, the banks had already opened. I didn't need anything complicated. I simply withdrew all the money from my accounts. I had lunch at a cafe. I had enough funds to last for a while, but I knew I'd still need to find a job soon. Nora and I had always shared a love for our work. I knew I'd miss her. I spent several hours exploring new places. Other than that, I didn't have a clear plan for what would come next. Hours passed as I got lost in the calm atmosphere that seemed like the perfect place to relax. By the end of the day, I decided to buy a yearly membership. When the sun set low, I found modest accommodations nearby, an affordable furnished trailer in a small park, which was exactly what I needed. When Monday came, I was determined to find work. A man with carpentry skills can always find a way to earn if he's willing to work. There was no rush. I could stay in the shadows for a while until it was time to renew my license or registration. On Sunday afternoon, I picked up the phone and called Gloria. I figured it would be fair to let her know how things were going, even though Nora had already done that for me. She had confessed everything, how she cheated, how I found out, and how I left. Her actions even cost her the job. I didn't enjoy hearing that she lost her job, but it was the price for her choices. I asked Gloria to pass the information along to Josh the next time they spoke. I promised to stay in touch from time to time, but I didn't reveal my new location. By Monday afternoon, I had already found a job. The job was conveniently located within walking distance from my new home, and I passed by a bar on the way. What more could a man need? I wasn't entirely sure how the pay worked, but they gave me $30 an hour without asking too many questions, and that suited me just fine. I was happy, and so were they. I didn't even have to touch the money I had brought with me. A couple of months went by, and Gloria informed me that Nora had returned to her parents. She didn't have many details, but she was glad to hear I had settled in. Then Josh called me, telling me he was preparing for a cruise. He worked as a technician on an aircraft carrier and tried to explain the details of his job, but it was beyond my understanding. I had never been into technical things. Both Josh and Gloria made an effort not to criticize their mother, and I appreciated that. After that, my life fell into a steady rhythm. Gloria and I spoke at least once a week. Josh and I also started messaging regularly. Gloria kept in touch with Nora, but kept any news about her to herself. Neither Nora nor I had filed for divorce. Meanwhile, I got my driver's license and renewed my registration. Once or twice a month, I stopped by the local bar where I occasionally met women. 2 of them became my regular companions. None of us were looking for anything serious, and that suited everyone involved. Life was good. Over time, thoughts of Nora grew more distant. As time passed, my car started having problems, and that made me realize how long I had been away. One evening, as I sipped my beer, it suddenly hit me. I had been gone for almost 6 years. Despite the time and distance, I maintained close relationships with both of my children. By then, Gloria had given birth to 2 children, and she invited me to visit. Josh nearly married a woman from China but changed his mind at the last minute. I worked 6 days a week, leaving Sunday to recover from Saturday's parties. So, when someone knocked on my door early Friday morning at 7 a.m., I wasn't thrilled. Whoever it was would have to deal with me answering the door half asleep. Opening the door in just my underwear, I noticed that the woman standing there was not impressed. She quickly averted her eyes, but the man beside her didn't seem to care. Normally, I would have thrown something on, but at that hour, I wasn't in the mood to make exceptions for unannounced visitors. "We're looking for Matthew Walker," the man said. "I don't know who you are," I responded, clearly irritated. "My name is David Simmons, and this is my wife Marcia. We have a small problem, and we were hoping you could help," he said. "I don't start work this early. If you've got car trouble, you should go to a shop," I snapped. The room filled with tension as a few uncertain glances were exchanged before someone finally broke the silence. "This isn't related to your work. It's a personal matter. May we come in?" Inside the trailer, everything was a complete mess. I rarely had guests, so I never cared much about cleanliness. Even my girls usually preferred to stay at their own place. "Yeah, sure, come on in. Let me just put some pants on." As I headed to the bedroom, I left the door slightly open. As a gesture of politeness, I also put on a shirt. "Can I offer you some coffee? It'll take about 10 minutes. I cleared part of the couch so they could sit, but they didn't respond about the coffee. "We've adopted a daughter. She's 5 years old. She needs a bone marrow transplant, and we're hoping you can help. We can compensate you for any inconvenience," they said. Were they asking about my bone marrow? "You want to buy it?" I asked. "No, we're asking for your help and are willing to cover any inconvenience," they explained. "So you're trying to buy it," I repeated, this time with a hint of sarcasm. I quickly realized how inappropriate that was. These people were in a tough situation and genuinely needed help. "I'm really sorry," I added quickly. "Please, go on. Our best chance of finding a donor is through a relative, and you're the closest match we've found." Their words sounded sincere. "I don't mean to be rude, but it seems like there's been a mistake. When was your daughter born?" I asked, still not believing this. "In August, she'll be 6, said Marcia Simmons, speaking for the first time with a tone close to pleading. "I'm uncomfortable saying this, but I had a vasectomy 20 years ago. I can't be her father." "Then why is your name on her birth certificate?" they asked. "I don't know. Maybe you should ask her mother." An awkward silence filled the room. I felt bad for them, but I didn't know what else I could do. "What's her mother's name?" I finally asked. "Nora Louise Walker." That name hit me like a punch. I couldn't find the words to respond. I shouldn't have taken those damn pills she gave me. If I hadn't taken them, they wouldn't have a daughter. I thought I had forgotten that chapter of my life, but now all the memories came flooding back. The images of my wife and that politician. I had started to forget, but now the pain returned. Damn it. After a deep breath, I apologized for my earlier behavior. "Sorry for how I acted. I'll do whatever I can to help. Why can't Nora donate her own bone marrow?" "She's not a match medically." "Why not? She's the mother. She should be a good match." "She is, but her health won't allow it. The doctors won't even consider her." "What do you mean by her health? What's wrong with her?" "She's dying of liver failure. She has less than 3 months." I was stunned. That doesn't make sense. She's always been in good shape. They won't even let her sign the consent form. "So, is there something wrong with her mentally?" I asked. But their expressions made it clear they weren't going to confirm what we all knew. I didn't want to press them. Just a few minutes ago, I didn't care about their problem, but now I felt I had to do something. "Is there a chance one of my other kids might be a match?" I asked, trying to find another option. "Maybe, but we believe you're our best hope." Marcia interrupted, saying that most of the information had come from the adoption agency. I stood up, saying I needed a moment to pour some coffee and use the bathroom. I left them at the table and disappeared for a short while. While the coffee was brewing, I took the opportunity to quickly run to the bathroom, something I had been putting off for a while. I moved quickly, trying not to make Marcia feel even more uncomfortable. "Let's make a deal," I said, changing my tone. "If I tell you who your daughter's real father is, you have to promise that you'll pursue him until you get what you need." She frowned, not understanding. "What exactly do you mean?" "Your daughter's father is a rather well-known politician," I revealed. "He'll of course deny everything. He might even threaten you with legal action to keep you quiet. But if you keep pressing him, maybe you can make him confess. You could put enough pressure on him to help, maybe even agree to a bone marrow transplant for your daughter. Isn't that what you want?" I insisted. "Yes, that sounds good," she said, nodding. "But how do I make that happen?" she wondered aloud. I added, "Maybe the best way is through the media, television, radio, newspapers. Politicians hate bad press. Do you know anyone in that world?" I asked. They started to smile. It seemed like I had given them hope with my answer. "I think we can make it happen," she said, feeling a surge of determination. "So who is he?" they asked. "Malcolm Eugene Foote," I answered. "He'll do anything to avoid a scandal." By then, the coffee was ready, but David and Marcia were too eager to leave. Before they went, I gave them the contact information for Gloria and Josh in case they needed support. I knew they would step in if necessary. I also asked them where Nora was. I cleaned myself up a bit, got a haircut, put on a new shirt. Despite everything Nora had done, how she had ruined my life with her lies, I still wanted to look decent when I saw her again. When I arrived, it was another trailer park, but this one looked newer and better maintained. Nora's car was parked outside, with a flat tire and a cracked windshield. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Nora standing there. A woman appeared, probably around 56. She looked worn out, like someone who had been through hard times, without makeup and with tired eyes. Before I could say anything, she recognized me immediately. "Well, if it isn't Matthew Walker, I didn't expect to see you here," she said, catching me off guard. I resorted to an old, familiar phrase. "You've got me at a bit of a disadvantage." "Sherry Hart," she introduced herself. "Come in, honey. Want a beer?" "No, thank you," I replied politely. "I'm only here for Nora." Sherry led me to the dining room and pointed to a sideboard. "There she is, Matthew," she said, gesturing toward a brass urn sitting on an empty table. I froze, my eyes locked on the urn. I was too late. After a long pause, I finally muttered, "I think I'll take that beer now." Nora made a heartbreaking decision to give her child up for adoption and moved away. With the severance package she received from the company after losing her job, she managed to buy a trailer. This package included not only part of the company's profits, but also pension contributions and paid vacation time. Soon, Nora found a job at a sewing factory, working in the delivery department. It was there that she met Sherry. Sherry soon became Nora's neighbor, renting a room in the trailer. However, Nora's earnings quickly vanished, mostly spent on alcohol. She started with wine but soon switched to cheaper, stronger drinks. Her addiction spiraled out of control, and eventually she lost her job at the factory. With no other options, she began to deplete her savings. Isolated and withdrawn, Nora rarely left her home and had no romantic relationships. Despite all the hardships, Sherry stayed by Nora's side. She paid the bills and ensured there was food in the trailer, although Nora barely ate. Over the next 5 years, Nora's drinking worsened, and her health declined until, tragically, she passed away. To everyone's surprise, she left a will naming me as the heir to her double-wide trailer and car. Sherry explained that Nora was tormented by guilt over the adoption. She had taken no steps to avoid or terminate the pregnancy, and after the child was adopted, it seemed as though she had lost the will to live. The adoption had been arranged long before the child was born, and after that, Nora never found stable employment. The only jobs she took were informal and poorly paid. Sherry mentioned that Nora never showed any motivation or clear direction in life. Although she often spoke about me, she was always too afraid to reach out. Gloria even gave her my phone number, but Nora never found the courage to use it. It seemed that the brief romance that led to her pregnancy left a far deeper wound in Nora than it did in me. After spending 2 weeks in the city where I had lived for 31 years in a marriage to a woman who was no longer there, I decided to sell the trailer to Sherry for a symbolic $1 and managed to sell Nora's car for $1,000. Just a few days later, I found myself far from that city, spending time with new friends, David and Marcia. At first, Malcolm Eugene Foote was against our situation, but David and Marcia persuaded him to give in. He insisted on a DNA test, which ultimately confirmed his paternity. Reluctantly, Malcolm agreed to the bone marrow transplant to protect his public reputation. The operation was successful, but the consequences were brutal. His political career and personal life suffered greatly, and his approval ratings plummeted so quickly that his party replaced him with a new candidate just months before the election. Additionally, his wife filed for a highly publicized divorce. Now, I'm on my way to visit Gloria and the grandchildren. I never expected Nora to be capable of such betrayal, and above all, I never expected her to completely lose herself, the confident, successful woman she once was. This is where betrayal leads. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.